Whenever we want to talk about legal matters in the studio at TheInformer, we reach out to our regular contributor. His name is Mark Williams. Mark, welcome to the studio.
Good to be here. Hi.
Facebook and the federal government have been at loggerheads, it seems to me, from the past week or so. Facebook closed all the news sites, all the news postings on its service. It took a fearful hit in public faith. There are a lot of people who are totally disenfranchised with that tactic. But did the federal government win, or has Facebook got generally what it really wanted?
I think when I came on last, I said this was going to be a long game, a game of three-dimensional chess with everyone thinking as many moves out as they can. And at the moment, it's coming into balance. There's some kind of balance. I was astonished to see the reputational hit that Facebook took, and that the government hasn't taken a particular reputational hit, given they have against them a global player who's capable of getting into so many ears and across so many eyeballs.
That's interesting. That's your observation. I've been hearing from both sides. People will tell me that the federal government has backed down. Why did they do that? And there are others who are saying, oh gee, we had no idea that Facebook would be able to sit here and say one day their CEO was out saying everything like that the government is proposing is something we can't live with. That situation would be untenable. There's no way this is going to happen. This is our platform and this is what we do. And suddenly within a week, maybe not even a week, we've seen, it appears to me, a complete walk back, if not a come down. So what is it? Have I got it half right, or have I got it basically wrong?
No, I think that this is a very fast-moving situation,
right.
And even what was truth a week ago or 2 weeks ago is going to change again. I mean, the legislation as we speak right now has just gone back to the House of Representatives for some amendments, and is still not in law, right. And yet all this movement's been going on. I think one of the things that's pretty telling is really that this is going to turn into an American debate very soon. When the public submission process was going through Parliament, the US Federal Trade Commission and the US Embassy put in very strong submissions against the government, saying this was targeting two big American corporations and they did not like it. Then the government changed in the US, or at least the president changed in the US, and it's been very clear that President Biden does not like the strength of the social media platforms at the moment. So regulation is much harder to achieve in the US. The Australian model is typical of this particular government, that it actually throws it back to free enterprise to strike a bargain in the light of what they would deem a market failure. That's the way the US does things as well, as opposed to just banning or regulating or taxing.
I've watched Zuckerberg and Facebook over the last 10 years or so, and I can remember the posturing, the genuflexing, all the strategies in the world when Mark Zuckerberg made his entree and spoke to the Chinese government and made sure that he was fluent in Mandarin, and he appeared in person in Beijing, and the world covered that story. And I'm just wondering, did they miscalculate, or was it a case of, look, it's a small market, it's Australia, we'll just get what we want. They seriously don't understand who we are and who they're playing with. And suddenly it's all changed, because if the model here works, then it's something that can be rolled across the globe. Now, you say it might be harder in America, but what about Europe? What about Britain, that is threatening to also ask similar things of Facebook?
Yeah, and I think that's why the Australian position at the moment is so interesting, and why the government is only one little piece in this jigsaw. Facebook appears to have behaved, if you like, a little bit like that Chinese government way of doing things. And that is something that Western democracies will respond to, and interestingly, in this particular case, the users of social media. I think perhaps Facebook was banking on the fact that people would just see their newsfeed go and immediately blame the government.
What did you make of the mini battle between the other powers, namely Murdoch? There are a lot of people who are not Murdoch lovers, who have very much Murdoch in their sights, and whenever there's something bad, they hit them right between the eyes. And we're now hearing, or some people are now describing this as a win for Murdoch and a loss for not so much the government, but Murdoch and Facebook. And what do you make of that sort of balancing act? Is Murdoch, just because it's a big player, included? Or was there indeed another battle going on that we didn't really take into account at first glance?
No, it's a really good question, and to answer it, I'd go back about 15 or 20 years when Lachlan Murdoch lined up the public broadcasters as they were moving into online delivery.
Okay.
And said, well, they're going to cut our lunch, we should be allowed in first.
Okay.
And then, of course, we've seen all the commercial media players fail at online in one way or another. And then comes social media and cuts their lunch again.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should forget that their original complaint, if you like, was against the social network of public broadcasting.
Right.
And the offensive way, at least to free enterprise, the way in which the social media, using a free enterprise model, has outplayed them as well.
How do you respond to the original the man who gave us the internet, and he said the doors should always remain open, and there should be no encumbrances, and he sided, or seemed to side with Facebook. How would he be feeling today?
I think we might have talked about this before, that Tim Berners-Lee actually said one of the things in creating an open internet was the bit they missed was that then private corporations could make their own rules
which is what we've seen
within an open environment, and actually close off sections of itself, fence it and start charging rent.
Yeah.
And that sort of rent-seeking behaviour is exactly the kind of thing that the competition regulators have always tried to shut down.
But they lost a grip on that, didn't they?
So this idea
this is why we've almost got to this stage where we are today.
Now, this idea of the internet being an open prairie on which everyone can roam neglects to notice that some big ranchers and squatters turn up and start putting fences down.
Yeah, exactly. Big fences that have incredible ramifications. Okay, so we're expecting a decision. You were saying to me late March.
Yeah.
We might hear something. It appears it may well be in a week or so.
I think that's right. Certainly, we're hearing that Turkey is being talked.
Okay.
And it's being talked before the compulsory aspects of this legislation even kick in. I mean, it's not law yet, but it says people have got a bargain if they have in a position of monopoly. Facebook has said, look, the definition of news was really fuzzy. Look what happens if we use the definition of news in our algorithm. But I think anyone will accept that the algorithm got out of control.
Well, it certainly did when it started closing down the Bureau of Meteorology, when it closed the major hospitals, when a number of the emergency service facilities they lost the ability to post the latest information, and that did change the very nature of the battle, because suddenly it became a battle between Murdoch and the old dinosaurs in media, and there were many critics jumping on board and saying, well, listen, hey, the time of the dinosaur is over. It's a new generation. They either need to stand up or fall over. Facebook is in the right. Suddenly everything is shifted yet again.
Yep, that's right.
It's extraordinary. And so much misinformation.
And I think one of the things that's come out of it too is
propaganda.
This discussion that actually the big socials are part of infrastructure now, like the banking system, like public broadcasting, or like free-to-air broadcasting.
Yes.
Even if you're making a buck out of it, you've still got some duty to keep the lights on. These things were worked out through the transport system in the 19th century, that if you are the person who's got the service, you must keep it running, and you must keep it running to a certain level of functionality. So there's all sorts of regulation that is now staring the socials in the face.
Yeah.
The fact that Google and Facebook were singled out for this is interesting.
What did you make of Google's jump straight in? They started dealing. They started doing business. They started doing business with Channel 9, with Channel 7 and so on. Did that signal a more alert media giant, or someone that could see the writing on the wall and they thought, no, let's not worry about sticking with Facebook, let's do our job?
Well, what I've been reading on this is really that Google faces more competition than Facebook does. Facebook is a network that is now so big that to replicate it, and they have carefully bought up a number of threatening players over the time.
WhatsApp, Instagram is now part of their family, their extended farm, as we say.
That's right, and kids keep, charging into the next thing and the next thing, and it's just possible that Facebook will be as passé as Ask Jeeves in another 5 years. If they play this kind of thing wrong, they very well could be.
Well, we thank you once again for coming into the studio and again giving us an opportunity to look behind the news headlines and giving us a sense of what has been happening, who's in the right or who's been more right than the other. But the one thing that never ceases to amaze me is just when the stakes are that high, just how much propaganda is thrown around and how difficult it is to actually see the wood for the trees. It's just extraordinary. And the last week and a half has been most illuminating.
It's been very interesting watching good chess players play.
Yeah. And speaking of chess, the Queen's Gambit, have you seen it?
I have not, I'm afraid.
You must put it on your list of goodies because it's a wonderful production. Two, a wonderful star has created a whole new character that you fall in love with, and chess is back big time. Talking with us on The Informer, Mark Williams. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks indeed.